Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Urbana Civilian Police Review Board to order, Wednesday, January 23rd. Roll call, please.
Tom Costello,
Here.
Ricardo Diaz,
Here.
Scott Dossett, Diane Gottheil,
Here.
Grace Mitchell,
Here.
James McNeely,
Here.
and Ivy Williams.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we will go for the approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved. Second.
I do have there's a
Okay,
correction.
go ahead.
On the September 19, 2012, it's a minor one, though,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. Yes.
very minor, in the 2012 minutes, where it says acting chair, it should be
You can either
taken
change
out.
it to chair or acting as chair, Tom Costello, either one. We'll give it to you after the meeting.
It's very,
it's a very minor correction we'll
minor,
take care of.
minor.
Okay, well, why don't we do that, okay? All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mr. Rent.
All right. In your packets, you'll see at the very back, I believe it is, the report of the complaints that we've had in 2012. It should show the ones that have been that are currently pending and that have been addressed within the last year or so. I would like to note that on 12, and first of all, I apologize for the font being so small. I was trying to fit in all the information. I'll get rid of one or condense the categories so it's a little easier to read. I apologize for that. At 12:09:09, which is 3 from the bottom, there was a finding in that complaint, and the finding was no misconduct by the officer. I'll get a date. I've actually updated the version that we're going to put on the web tomorrow morning, so I'll get you that date of when the finding actually occurred.
Okay.
But that's the only real change that I have. Are there any questions about any of the?
You said the finding was no misconduct?
Yes. Oh, yes, you can have this one. Do you have that? Okay, yeah. You can, I think these are the minutes, and here's the agenda. Yeah, we'll just share. So, no, it's okay. Any additional questions at this point?
So, so we really just have one pending, is that correct?
Yes. And that was filed pretty late last year, so you would expect that it may take a little bit
Okay.
longer before they actually come up with the finding.
Okay. Any members of the board have any questions about that? Okay. What else you got?
So that is it in terms of the staff report. I have some comments about the annual report, but we can wait, I guess, until we
Okay.
get to that part of the agenda.
All right. Public participation? What's his name? Good evening, Benjamin. Nice to have you with us. Seeing none?
No comment. He didn't have.
Seeing none. He smiled.
He didn't have.
Old business? And I don't really think we have any. Let's have someone, so let's, why don't we go to the annual report?
So what I provided for you is basically a mock-up with updated information for the last year. And I guess part of the question I have for you is we've had this format for a few years now, asking whether or not you want to basically just refine this report, get out the typos and that type of thing, and submit this, or whether or not you would like to add sections onto the report. I would have had it in the packet, but I had some technical difficulties. I seem to always have them with this report, converting it over from Publisher to Adobe. So I guess what I'm looking for is feedback as to whether or not we want to add some sections, whether or not we'd like another format, whether or not you want to make any major changes, or whether or not you'd rather just go with the updated information ultimately.
One of the things that, this staff report that you just gave, is this a part of this report?
Yeah, it ends up being a part of the appendix, but it's longer because it shows a longer trail of cases.
Okay, so 12/12, 09, 09/12.
Yes.
Okay, will the correction that it was a finding be corrected in this?
Yes. Yes.
Is it gonna be in color?
Yes. Particularly online, it will be on color, or in color.
Charts and
Right, yeah, it helps with the charts.
I think that, certainly, we want to take whatever input the board has, excuse me. But I think some of this is things now that we're in our, what year, Tony? Where are we at?
2013.
Huh? Third year, fourth year?
Yeah, the operational year, the first starting of the board was April of 2008.
Yeah, I mean, we have made this presentation to the council. I think at this point, unless we have some major upheaval, I think that our major sections that we want to emphasize, primarily, this is an update in terms of the work of the board to the council. And a lot of that would be reflected in, one, what are we doing in terms of complaints that have been filed and dealt with, and also what are we doing with hearings that we've held, and what's been the resolution of that. To me, that seems where the report needs to be, where our emphasis needs to be, compared to early on where we were attempting to explain at some length to the council what we were all about and what we were doing as well. So, with that, I'll entertain any input that board members have pertaining to this.
Well, I think it's fine because it does bring it up to where we are now. You know, it is, you know, the history's fine, but these are the things that I think they want to see. Proof is in the pudding.
With the complaints, are they resolved? How are they, in what way have they been resolved, and what work we're doing? Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
See it in here, look on page 10. And I see Ricardo's pictures there. So, you know, see what it is.
So are you,
Position.
question, are you suggesting we leave it as it is, or that we?
No, I think we're fine. What I'm trying to just to say is that we've massaged this for a number of years to the point where now, really, our emphasis is merely on what are we doing, not.
Who are we?
Yeah, that's what I'm really getting at.
So do you think some of this is unnecessary?
No, I think both from reporting to the council as well as from a public document, I think it's important that we have those things in there so that people always have that background available to them.
And then look at it at the complaints determined. Go back to page nine.
A pie chart.
Yeah.
Go back and forth on page 7. Like, prior to 2008, so that was our operational year, the highest number in 20, which is good.
Comfortable with page 9, the way the pie chart reads. I mean, the quick glance at it says, basically the students, citizens are 5 chart tells me when I look at it. Then I look at the definition of not founded, it says that we agree with the chief. Does not find support is, at least for me, a kinder way of saying the process we went through. Not founded is a definition of, it just sounds like citizens are whining. I'm sorry.
Is that a term that comes out from us, or is that a term that's used, period?
That's a term that I've seen used in other reports.
Okay.
And I think it is sort of a collapsing of two of these categories, of the not founded and the insufficient evidence.
Right, right.
Well, no matter what word we change, we need to change the unfounded so that it reflects what's up top. It's either not founded, or number two has to be it's got to be one of the two. It can't be, we have a different name than what we have up top. Diane, you disappoint me.
Well, I think really both terms should be used, that it should be not founded / insufficient evidence.
Well, and I guess,
Opposed to not agree.
Well, and
Well,
Kind
one-
of stands out with, agree with the chief, as opposed to just saying, Diane, just what you said, very simple. Not founded, unfounded, insufficient evidence.
one thing I'd like to point out is some of these actually, when we're including the 2005 to 2008 complaints, the categories were not defined as they are now under the ordinance. And so many of those complaints ended up being insufficient evidence, right? And so now we're using basically a founded, not founded, or unfounded kind of comparison. And so the collapsing of the categories was an attempt to be able to pull in all that data from 2005 to 2008 in a meaningful way without actually losing it. So we can do that, just we probably need to understand that we're going to see more of a breakdown based upon date than we are the differentiation between the two. I'm not sure I'm explaining it well, but
No,
so.
I think what you're calling for is a note that explains that the collapse includes not sufficient evidence. And I think that it would
Right,
help
yeah,
the
that's fine.
report to be able to say there are some unfounded, some not founded, and some insufficient evidence. And if it's with a slash, at least it gives a reflection of what's truly there.
Right.
But the other one for me is even PR.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So either combine them so you'll know that in that big piece of the pie, there are all of these pieces, unfounded, not founded, insufficient evidence. As opposed to by just all looking like not founded. Or,
Yeah, we're
Based upon
here
the
to
chief.
say yes to the chief.
right.
And there's certainly enough room in that pie to put all those words in there. So that's not a problem. Well, and I think that is a lot more explanatory than what we've got.
So you're gonna be collapsing it. That's what I'm hearing.
Either that or providing an explanatory note that helps people understand exactly.
Either one, I think.
I think if we don't include that explanatory note, I think it would lose the confidence in the public probably to come before us
Right.
and present.
Now, I will tell you,
information.
in terms of the numbers and the ratios of founded to unfounded, this is pretty similar to what you'll see. I mean, it's not, I'll just say it's not overly different or disparate than what you'll typically see with these, but.
Well, and that's been that way for the time that we've been in existence as well. That hasn't changed. So are we in agreement that we want to have a little further explanation on that pie chart for that one rather large category?
Yeah, it should be broken down.
that okay?
And the explanation is to justify why it looks that way.
Okay. All right, I certainly,
I think so.
all right, well, let's just do that then. I mean, we're certainly all in agreement that take done. Does anybody have anything else? I mean, if you want to take a moment, continue to look, that's fine.
I guess I have one further question. Just in the report, over the last year, we've talked several times of expanding an outreach to letting people know what we do and meeting with organizations that might have something to say about our existence. And currently, it's not reflected in the report, maybe because it wasn't done before, or it stayed at top and we haven't done more.
Yeah, I would say it's because maybe we haven't done as much this year or last year. We didn't do a lot, but in previous years, we were actively involved. We went to Ministerial Alliance, we went to the Committee on Peace and Justice.
We were out at the market fair.
Yeah, we were out at the Saturday, the food market, what you call that?
Market at the Square.
Market at the Square.
We were at another event down on 4th Street, you know, in areas where many times the concerns come up from. So we have been out there. This year, I'd say 2012, we didn't do a lot of that. You know, we were going to set up times to have meetings with the different groups, but somehow we didn't connect. So that's what's happening. But that's something that we should get back on, you know.
And on that, I should note, I would anticipate that some of those meetings are going to occur early spring. Some of them got sort of delayed based upon the election and some other things that kind of got in the way. So I would expect that we're going to have a meeting with, I actually met back in the fall with the NAACP, and I think we're sort of going to get back together and get that meeting set also with the Ministerial Alliance. So
we should put it on page 11 then as proposed goals or propose something, you know, not as a summary, because we didn't do much, but then as the intention
The
of
full
what we
goal
want
for
to do.
2013 is to actively pursue community input
That's fine.
through our tours.
I have a question about the wording, because I think it's a little confusing. On page 10, the first appeal was filed on July 5th. When it says that the matter was ultimately resolved, it sounds like, it's not clear to me. It would be more precise, I believe, to say the matter was resolved prior to the hearing. And
It sounds like we resolved it.
yeah, it sounds
instead
like
of-
we had been involved in the resolution where we went. And the appeal was done.
So the matter was the
No.
matter was resolved prior to the hearing and the appeal withdrawn.
Right.
Yep.
This matter was resolved.
Yeah, that was good. That's good. That's a good change. I would, while we're on that point, I think I would like that a little bit bolder on those two appeals so that people realize that we,
We met and asked
I
them to appeal.
thought that too.
you know,
yeah.
this is kind of in there as almost as the same as everything else. And I think based on the kinds of things we do, that's a little greater import than some of the other things.
So you want larger font and bolded?
Yeah, I think so, that, and even in terms of the, I think the title for that as well. You know, the appeals to CRB, I think that's, and, you know, for a couple of reasons. One, you know, that they are limited, and two, they were handled with dispatch on our part. Okay.
The state in 2012 year, the committee
Maybe
handled two appeal
Yeah.
cases.
instead of, the hearing was scheduled for October 3rd, the hearing was held, right? On October?
Where are you at?
On those two, page, I think it's 10, is it?
Yeah.
Page 10.
Okay, I see. Was scheduled, was held.
Yeah, there should be like a section within itself.
And is there anything else you'd like to say in terms of substantively about that appeal? I know we can't say a lot, I'm just,
Well, I think if we set this off a bit more than what we have, you know, make it a bit more obvious, I think that's, I mean, I don't think we need to, I don't want to find this position that we're giving this long explanation of the appeal, and but other than the fact that, you know, they came to us and we dealt with them as we needed to. But I want people to know that,
The process
We
is
did that.
there and it's being used. That the process is there and it's being used.
right, exactly, yeah,
It
as
has
Ivy
been
was
used.
saying, you know, the process is there, and that's, and people have availed themselves of that.
It would be like a separate area, a separate section, you know, not.
Well, I think if we make that really strong down here, I think that would do that. That's the thing, you know, the,
Well, for consistency's sake, then, page 7, page 10 should use the same wording. That is, the text box says, he sustained, you know, not sustained, sustained, remanded. So, after careful consideration of the appeal, the board voted to sustain the findings of the chief of the Urbana Police Department. Because that's what page 7 says. Or we change page 7 to say, we vote to support the findings of the Urbana Police Department. But I think the ordinance says chief, right?
Right.
I don't know, I don't have it with me, but
Chief, I think it is. I really like page 10.
so the CPRB voted to sustain the findings of the chief of the Urbana Police Department. Great.
so to understand, page 7, its relationship to page 9. Nine is a summary of all complaints. Page 7 is for those that we actually have a hearing for. Correct?
I don't
I'm
think-
sorry?
No.
So page 7, the text box includes what we can determine after a hearing.
Right.
Oh,
Page
okay.
9 is a broader, because
Right.
graph, because that includes all complaints.
And that includes them throughout the entire process.
Correct. So, page 9 is not a reflection of our
Absolutely.
work.
Right.
It's only a reflection of the whole complaint process.
Right.
So is there a way, I mean, we're putting it in text on page 10, but, in the boxes. But is there a way we could say that on page 9? Because it sounds like we're involved in page 9, where actually we don't come into play for page 9.
Well, there are some, particularly ones that are filed since the board is operational. You know, the filings are on CPRB complaint forms. They are sort of going through the process that the ordinance dictates. And so even though the complaints were not appealed, even if it is in a non-active way, the structure of the board and the structure of the ordinance is what is sort of governing these appeals, or this complaint process.
Which
That's
makes
how they're getting the
sense.
information.
But I think then there, for the public's understanding of that, then either the chart reflects a percentage of those that were actually put to hearing, or we add another note that says, out of X number of complaints being processed in this chart, 3 of them actually got a hearing, or went all the way to hearing.
Or this board or CC, we were actively involved in the appeal process to 3 of them.
Yeah.
So, okay, to
See,
acknowledge.
because the chart right now almost reflects, you know, our work is the final stage of the process. Right? And when a board is held accountable for the full process, or at least it looks like it by page 9, that we're sending incomplete information. We are only in the final process, although we're privy to any complaint. Really, what anyone's gonna say is when you have hearings.
Right, because we're notified with any of the complaints.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So maybe just a note that says, you know, the chart, the end for this chart, the total number of considered was, what, by now, 500 or something. 3 of them went to hearing, to the final stage or something. Just so that we are held differently in light of page 9. Page 9 looks huge. But really appeal has gone, because I've actually done 3 to 2. In my time, has been 1 year.
3 total.
3 total.
Well, 3 have been filed total, we'll put it that way. 2 have actually been done, 3 have been filed.
I think I agree with you. And I just think that there's just, what we're trying to do is differentiate between, we want to offer to the council an insight as to what the trends are and where that is, and that's what that does for all the complaints and what things are going on. And then we want to differentiate, and while I think in some ways we're privy to that as to how many complaints ultimately get filed,
Yeah.
well, the next step, of course, is what is the work that we do, and you want to make that clear. I think that, you know, I'd like to, Todd, if you could, I think before we move this out of draft form, why don't you send us 7, 9, and 10? And just to make sure that everybody's comfortable with that, once you hash it out and figure out how we want to, you know, what format you want to lay that in or how you want to put it, we're taking into consideration what the board has indicated this evening, and then let us see it before we let it go out. Is that okay? Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask whether or not you wanted to have another meeting just to
No, I
sort
don't
of
think so. I think
evaluate.
you just let us know.
And
I
adopt
mean,
this.
I think that, you know, I'm sorry. I know, Grace, you enjoy having as many meetings as you possibly can. I think was I quick enough? But I think the point being is, if there's a significant problem, then we'll worry about having a meeting, but just to have it for the sake of, just in case, I don't think, I mean, if some, yeah, if someone says, hey, this is really disconcerting to me, all right, then we'll worry about it. But otherwise, we'll just take a look at it to give it the, you know, help with the tweaking.
Can we then, each of us communicate?
Yes.
Absolutely,
You want
absolutely,
to communicate
yes.
with me individually, I'll
Yes.
send it out electronically.
Right.
Just respond individually to me.
And we decide
Right, okay.
what the consensus seems to be of
Yeah,
the tweaking.
Yes.
okay? That way we get the little final peek at that. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else?
I just want to report back, 2 meetings ago, I suggested that we meet with the Immigration Forum. Since gone to the Immigration Forum, and, you know, how things go, one meeting, I put it on the agenda, then it went through, but eventually they said that it would be a good idea. There's a subcommittee of the Immigration Forum called Law Enforcement, and we can either go or invite them to our meeting, or, you know, but they're ready, they've said yes.
Okay, well, let's move that forward. Yeah, okay.
So do you know when they meet or their time, you know,
Actually,
time?
their strategy meeting was held yesterday, and,
So that's like what, the 3rd, Tuesday?
yeah, so it can be put anytime in February or March. It's flexible. There's 5 members of that committee, or if we go to the full forum, it's actually the 2nd Tuesday of the month at 5.
Where?
Held at the University Lawn.
So what do you recommend would be the most useful?
Well, I think it's one of the groups that should know more, so that everybody there can communicate to their people that we exist. So even if we did a quick visit or sent a delegation of us to be at the general meeting, either in February or in March, I think that would be more of an outreach than if we asked them to come, because then, you know,
could we get on there,
On the agenda, yeah.
on the agenda?
Yeah. So actually, it's up for choice. If you want February or March, and then I'll put it over there to be put on the agenda.
And I would think that as many of us could be there, so.
Yeah, so we
See
can.
us.
When in March did you say? I'm sorry.
So it would be the second Tuesday of March.
Just check for break is all. We'll always check for spring break or you, or, we'll be-
So it should be the 12th of March.
That's not spring break time or anything, is it?
break is in the 14th, is the following week.
Yeah.
Break's the following week. Well, I mean, I think that's fine. Why don't we just put it down and pick the date, February, March, either one.
And you said it's where again?
It's
At the Y.
University Y, 5 to 6 p.m.
Okay.
And I'll take care of putting us on their agenda, and I'll send to Todd, and then he can send
Okay.
the confirmation.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah,
All right?
So you're talking about the 12th of March,
Yeah,
Right.
Tuesday, second Tuesday of March.
5 p.m.
that would be 5 days before St. Patrick's Day, in case you wanted to know.
Your hair won't be that green yet.
Okay. I would consider that an announcement, actually. Are there any other announcements? I will accept a motion to adjourn. Oops, yes, sir.
I'm sorry. There's another item on the agenda. It's the discussion of public officer and citizen interactions. It came about as a result of a discussion that was held during the appeals hearing. The concern was raised about, and I think it was officer decorum and the tone of officer interactions with citizens. And I just wanted to bring it up before it adjourned. I'm happy if you want to put it on next meeting, but I think it was Mr. Diaz who actually requested that it be put on the agenda, so I just wanted to point it out.
When it came in the heat of the moment, and if you look at the chart, the most common complaint is the conduct of the officers, the verbal, the interaction between an officer and family or whatever. So I recall that being an issue because it seemed very much like in that case that the relation, it was an interpersonal exchange, such as we all have, and it was not resolved at that, unofficially, or it was very much like a personal situation. And it's not the first time, but it is the most often situation that people complain, yeah, he was screaming, he was doing that. In fact, our first case 2 years ago was
What,
almost one of them.
why don't we invite the deputy chief and just have her review with us the training so that we have some familiarity of what they're doing in terms of interpersonal interactions to get a sense of that, and then kind of move from that so that we can see where, I'm sure, I can tell you as someone who has a large organization with people that interact with others on a daily basis, that same would be true for our organization as well. Not excusing it, I'm just saying that I know where that lies. Yeah.
And the other part, I guess I was thinking, on the behalf of the officers or the large organization, it's on both sides, because they're only trying to they were acting sometime based upon what they're receiving or giving.
Sure. Oh, I don't disagree.
And I know they should be
Yeah, I know.
professional and take the higher end, but it might be a conversation that we can
But they might be
bring them
human
both
beings,
together.
right?
They're
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I
exactly.
said, why don't we bring Deputy Chief in and have her show us what they're doing, and just ask the question, we see that these are the most frequent ones. Where are we at with the training that we're offering the officers, the help that we're offering the officers to deal with this kind of stuff, despite the adversity that, or, the heat of the moment, as you would say, in those situations. Is that okay?
I think it would be great, especially because people watch this, and it's an opportunity to educate the public as to what is their training and how are they supposed to react is also a person that's being pulled over that must also keep at the court.
Sure.
I also wanted to mention, I had a conversation with the chief about this several weeks ago, and one of the things that he offered is that he would be very happy to maybe develop some type of regular meeting with the CPRB where we would actually sit down and randomly select video of traffic stops. Now, mind you that it would not be representative of all of the cross-section of police interactions, but basically we would randomly choose traffic stops to look at, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, and sit down at a sitting, review those traffic stops in order to get a better idea of sort of the scope of interactions and how these interactions are occurring on a day-to-day basis. So he wanted to throw that out there for your consideration.
Well, I think we can incorporate that with having, the chief wants to come, fine. I know that, Deputy Chief deals with most of this stuff, and that's why I said let her bring it in, but I don't know if you want to have a couple take a look at those things. I know that they'd love to have you see what they're dealing with as well.
You know, one of the things that fits in with that, Todd, is that we are somewhere we are supposed to be having training, at least once or twice a year, we're supposed to have this training. And having us look at that would be the same to me as the simulation that we did, with the shooting. I think that's one way we could consider that training when they come in and go over different things, ask us questions, what would we do, what do we think, so that's how I see it, as a training tool.
Sure,
That we're
sure.
supposed to have.
Okay, that's fine.
So is everybody okay if we set that up?
Yeah, and can we
Great.
leave it to the chief whether
He comes or sends her. Right, we should.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah, I just know that,
or whoever wishes.
yeah.
And we need to get back on track with our drive-alongs, ride-alongs. Yeah.
I actually think I'm gonna try doing the day since I don't work. Maybe.
Good time on my last one, I did the whole shift. Did you? Yeah. It's interesting. Had to duck down in my neighborhood. I didn't want people to see me. So he said, I ain't gonna do that. I'll have to jump.
Grace, be worried when they ask you to sit in the back of the vehicle. Does anybody have anything else?
And then another announcement, actually. We don't get this many talk enough, so I can later. Last weeks ago, the state legislature, both sides, passed what they called it Safety for All bill, which was essentially a bill to permit the Department of Motor Vehicles to license, do the testing for individuals that are immigrant but not necessarily have a valid visa. Essentially, anyone who, an immigrant will be able to go to the DMV and get tested so that they can get a driver's license. They were very specific as to it being a temporary license, which under the categories of driver's license means that it cannot be used for identification. It's only for driving. So they're going to have to go through the test. But I anticipate that in the next year, we might have fallout from the bill, both in the relationship with officers and then the training that officers are given the new law, because it means a couple of 100,000 people in the state now being able to drive that weren't before. And it does include many Spanish speakers, but also, through this, I just found out last week, the driver's license exam, written exam, is given in English, in Spanish, and in Polish.
Right.
Those are the only 3 languages in which it's given. Had no idea. Chicago.
Oh.
Oh,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, now that,
Anyway, just put it on our radar as an announcement, because the governor hasn't signed it yet. He's likely to sign it, and in that grind in the next year, something, we will get cases, I believe, related to that.
Okay.
talked about that. I did see that on the news. You spoke, actually. Well, I thought I saw you as a speaker.
We brought in a couple of people to be
Okay.
interviewed,
Uh-huh.
and I was supposed to be only the interpreter. And-
Right. Okay, I did see.
Does anybody have anything else? Okay. Now, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. James? Second? All in favor, say aye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.